Well, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whoever you are, wherever you are, whenever it is for you. For me, it is just past midnight on Saturday, May the 3rd, which makes this the news for Friday, May the 2nd, day 1164 of Vladimir Putin's war of aggression against the people of Ukraine. How do you do? I'm Peter Alexievich, coming to you live from this major European capital, currently under siege by the forces of the Russian Federation. And I see that the peeps are coming in. Hey, Hobo. Hey, Richard Prexis. Melanie, good evening. PH. Van, my man. My man, Van. How you living? Hey, Nicola. Ms. Fuller, how do you do? Eddie Wider. Hey, Scotty. How is everybody tonight? How do G2? Hello, Alex. Hey, Andy. Mia the Weenie. Hello, Mia. Are you optimistic? There is some reasons to be optimistic. There are also some reasons not to be. So the big thing I think that hit me today, and I just did the video 7 minutes after the information was published by Military News UA. The U.S. has green-lighted $310 million aid package to Ukraine. This is the first aid package from the Trump administration to the Ukrainians since Trump has taken over. Now, look, it's only $310 million, but it's the support that Ukraine needs to keep their wing of F-16s flying. You might have seen the bodies, the airframes of some old F-16s pulled from the boneyard and shipped on an Antonov 124 to Poland, then to be transported to Ukraine. Those are for spare parts. So they're just stripped down airframes, no wings, no tails, maybe most of the engine in some of them. But military spokes representatives were very clear to point out these are non-functional, stripped down, non-working they said it twice. Non-functional, non-working F-16s for parts to the Ukrainians. Now, I would assume that this $310 million package includes those spare parts. So it's a drop in the bucket. It's a small gesture, but it's movement in the right direction. We also this week saw the Trump administration approve its first arms sale to Ukraine in the amount of $50 million. So again, very small packages, very small sales, but critical things that the Ukrainians need. That's good news all around. Now, especially to keep the planes flying, because the planes are crucial in taking out the so-called Guarantee drones of the Russian Federation. These are jet-powered drones that go 600 kilometers an hour, 400 miles an hour. They are not easy to shoot down with a Gepard or a chain gun or an autocannon. That's not going to work for them. And the introduction of these drones is one of the reasons we've seen the interception rate on nightly drone attacks here in Ukraine dropping a little bit, right? It was always above 90% interception rate. Now we're seeing lots of nights where it's in the 80s. Last night, for example, we saw I think it was 150. So I'm certain that 64 were shot down, 62 were taken out with active countermeasures, and it was an 84% interception rate. So something like 126 of 150 taken out. Good shooting by the Ukrainians. The minerals deal is all the talk, and it's important. It's important and it's not important. Look, Trump made the exact same deal with the Afghans on before the Taliban took over. A lot of good it does us there, huh? Nobody's investing in Afghanistan. This thing could go the same way. We may never see an American company come into Ukraine to mine, but it sends an important message to the Russians. It says to the Russians, first of all, the language of the deal included the words, the first time I have seen these words in any official communication from the Trump administration. The minerals deal included the words, whereas the war was the result of the full-scale Russian invasion, placing the blame squarely where it belongs, on the Kremlin, for the first time. It says to the Kremlin that the United States is invested with Ukraine for the long term. And it says that it sees the future of a free, independent, sovereign Ukraine that is economically prosperous. That's the message we want to send to the Russians. Now, whether or not it amounts to a hill of beans when it comes to security guarantees is another question. The Trump administration is making the claim that there could be no greater security guarantee than to be in business with Trump. Okay, fine. But are you actually going to do anything when push comes to shove? Now, a lot of people are saying that the minerals deal, there are some interesting conspiracy theories out there, I'll tell you. From people who don't indulge in conspiracy theories. Sir General Richard Sharif of the British Royal Services, who was a former NATO commander and acts as a military analyst today. He said something very interesting. He said that a lot of these deposits are in the East. And so will Putin whisper in Trump's ear, hey, buddy, I'll give you 75% of what I take out of Ukraine? And could this be a way for Trump and Putin to really fuck Ukraine? I don't know. It was an interesting take on things. I hadn't heard anyone else say that. When I read, am I surprised that Ukraine signed this deal? I am not, Chris. They were willing to sign a much worse deal on February 28th. This is a much better deal. Now, why were they ready to sign on February 28th? They were ready to sign on the 28th of February because they have very few choices. When it comes to getting weapons, America has the juice, baby. We've got the industrial capacity. We've got the weapons that work. Us being out of their weapons provisioning is not something that they may be able to survive, right? So back on February 28th, Zelensky traveled to the White House to sign what was, in fact, a far more extortive, exploitive deal. It was a kind of neo-colonial economic coercion against the state of Ukraine. But the Ukrainians were willing to sign it. And when it comes to these kinds of things, I don't second guess the Ukrainians. I trust the Ukrainians to do what is in their best interest. And when they were ambushed in Washington and treated so badly, they walked the fuck away. Good for them. Good for them. They stuck to their guns and they got a deal that is, by all accounts, a decent deal. Certainly, let me tell you who said this. Ukraine's trade representative and deputy economy minister, Taras Kachka, said it's a government-to-government document. It's the starting point on establishing the fund, the reconstruction fund. The other parts of the deal will be about the routine parts of the work. So the trade representative from Ukraine thinks it's a good deal, but he was not nearly as laudatory as Ukraine's Deputy Minister of Economy, Oleksiy Sobolev, who told reporters that the fund is the equivalent of a portfolio manager, that Ukraine will put 50% of the future rent profits from future licenses of future extractions into the fund. This way, Ukraine can leverage the investments, creating a win-win solution for all sides. And that's what it appears to be, a win-win, which is exactly what the great animating spirit of fraternal cooperation is the hallmark genius of our species. The ability to figure out win-win situations is what we do best. This bullshit that Putin and Trump have in their heads, that for them to win, someone else must lose, is a fallback to our worst primate predatory instincts, a time when we hunted and ate each other. It's insanity, and it does not work. The situation in the war has not changed at all simply because the United States has chosen to walk away from negotiating. In fact, they're going to save us all a lot of energy and time not having to deal with the bullshit extortion that comes out of the White House under this transactional nightmare of Donald Trump. So the United States walking away from the negotiations is the best thing that could happen. Best thing that could happen. They are not helping. Let's face facts. Putin, for his part, so yesterday in last night's live, right, the Kremlin messaging was still vacillating. On the one side, you saw state media outlets saying that it didn't really matter, that nothing would come of the deal. And then on the other side, you had people screaming that it was a betrayal by the United States of Russia, that Trump has gone crazy, right? Like Russian state media did not have its messaging straight last night. By this morning, they did. This is the headline from KPRU. Zelensky's demonic forces poisoned Trump. U.S. president's behavior has changed dramatically. And there's a picture of Zelensky in like a black hood with a candle and an upside down cross in his hand and a pentagram behind him. I mean, it's hysterical. So the Russians are not happy about the deal whatsoever. Trump has completely gone off the rails, boy. I'll tell you, he's really lost the plot. He wants to rename May 8th and November 11th Victory Day. Now, first of all, Victory Day is a Russian holiday, right? May 9th, the day of the defeat of the Germans in World War II. May 11th, everybody remembers as Armistice Day or as Veterans Day, the day that we honor the men and women who made the sacrifices to keep us all free. May 8th is not a holiday in the United States. It's not. Or if it is, it's Mother's Day. He wants to turn Mother's Day, replace the love of our mothers with unquestioning pride in the state. And he wants to replace the memory of our veterans, the men, our fathers and grandfathers who did the hard work, again with the state. It's insanity. It's absolute insanity of the worst sort. Now, he did say something that made sense. Trump did say something that made sense in an interview. I forget with whom. I published the video on the news we are waking up to this morning, but in this video, Trump says Zelensky better get his act together. He better make a deal, or there's going to be a problem. And Putin better make a deal, or we're going to send Zelensky all the weapons he wants. Now, when he said that last part, his whole face, every muscle in his orange mango face tensed up. I didn't believe a word of it. I really didn't. Now, that's not to say that it won't happen. We don't know, but we shall see. We shall see. In terms of no, actually, let me hold that off for a second. Let's finish the American politics first. Mike Waltz has had his last waltz as national security advisor. He's out, right? He lasted pretty good for a Trump national security advisor, 101 days. That is not even close to the record of 22 days set by General Milley in 2017, 22 days. The F-16s are just for parts, Courtney, yes. Hey, Jacob Grady. Now, there is talk of making him ambassador to the UN, rewarding his loyalty. We will see whether or not Trump means it. It could be that Trump is just going to use the Senate confirmations to get rid of this embarrassment who caused him Signalgate. This is the guy who added the reporter to the chat. Now, that doesn't excuse Pete Hegseth for adding his wife and son to the chat and sharing battle plans with them on Signal. But Waltz is a fuck-up. Who's going to want him at the UN? Hopefully, there is enough sanity in the Senate to prevent his confirmation as ambassador to the UN. Who's going to be doing his job in the meantime? Little Marco. Little Marco is going to be wearing two hats, National Security Advisor and Secretary of State, setting him up for real failure and his quick exit from the Trump administration. The last person to have both those jobs was Henry Kissinger. And little Marco is no Henry Kissinger. That is for sure. He is also rumored to be considering attending the May 9th Victory Day parade inside Russia. This is according to Russian state broadcaster Zvezda that said that published yesterday that Marco Rubio might be in attendance at the May 9th parade, Victory Day parade. Now, hopefully, this was just a Russian propaganda story planted in order to see if it would incense Americans. The idea that we would be represented at the parade that this genocidal lunatic is having, a military parade that will feature Chinese soldiers because Russia doesn't have enough soldiers to make it look good, right? Xi Jinping will be there. And guess what the Chinese did today? They asked Ukraine for a favor. Hey, Ukraine, if you wouldn't mind, maybe you couldn't bomb the Victory Day parade because our Xi is going to be there. Hey, you know what I'm saying? And we got a lot of guys marching in the parade. So maybe don't hit the parade, huh? Because if you hit Xi, that might be a problem. So this gang of gangsters and buffoons is doing everything they can to prevent a Ukrainian strike on the Victory Day parade and embarrass Putin, perhaps enough to undermine the Russian people's faith in him. So we shall see. Now, that's not the only thing happening around the parade. The Kazakhs are lending the Russians the equipment for the parade because the Russians don't have enough armor to do it. And then there is, of course, Putin's ceasefire. Putin called this unilateral, dictated ceasefire, no negotiations. Hobo, that was just a generic gangster voice. It certainly was not meant to poke fun at any Italians or people of Italian extraction. It was a generic gangster voice. Now look, this ceasefire is nothing but a desperate attempt by the Putin regime to keep Ukrainian drones out of the sky. Whether or not there will even be a ceasefire of any kind should be doubted by everybody that's been paying attention. He certainly didn't hold to the ceasefire, the last unilateral ceasefire that he decreed. And it certainly didn't apply in either Kursk or in Belgorod. Now, on the subject of Belgorod, we have some interesting news here. According to Andrei Kovalenko from the Center for Countering Disinformation, it is entirely, he says he's got intelligence that the Russians are considering moving the 11,200 or so odd North Korean troops that are up in Kursk right now, moving them to the Donbass. That would be North Korean troops on occupied Ukrainian soil, which the Kremlin and the North Koreans are going to say, no, that's Russian territory. The Russians annexed it. We've acknowledged that it's Russian territory. So we're not in Ukraine fighting. We're in Russia defending the borders of our sovereign ally. You can bet that's what they're going to say if they go ahead with it. The international community should be ready to respond to this. This is now Ukraine fighting two nuclear powers, both invading forces on its own territory. How long are we going to sit by and not do the right thing by Ukraine? What have I been saying for 2 years? If we don't deal with Putin here, it's going to be a green light to the mullahs in Iran and the Kim regime in North Korea that they can do the same, that might makes right in the world. And here now we've got the North Koreans battle hardening their troops, learning the lessons of modern warfare, becoming more and more prepared and fanatical at the same time. For its part, Russia continues to try to expand its sphere of influence. They are running influencer campaigns against the people of Georgia. I'm sorry, not Georgia. That's already done. Against Armenia, the people of Armenia, looking to get pro-Kremlin candidates elected in Armenia, because Armenia is moving farther and farther away from the CSTO and the Kremlin and control of the Kremlin. In Abkhazia, the breakaway republic of Georgia, the Russians are building the new home of the Black Sea Fleet. There's a deep water harbor there that they're using right now as an escape and safe haven for elements of the Black Sea Fleet. And get this, today, for the first time since 1992, 50 Russian tourists flew to Abkhazia to spend their summer holidays there. It looks like they're trying to turn the port of Abkhazia into a new Simferopol, right, where the home of the Black Sea Fleet is, where you had at one time 200,000 Russian sailors stationed. So where Crimea has been the destination, the summer destination of choice for Russians for definitely since the 2014 annexation, it looks like some of that is shifting to Abkhazia, and Abkhazia is getting development money, including direct flights from Moscow for the first time in 33 years. That is not stopping Russians from going to Crimea. This is crazy. This is the crazy part. So the first week of May is a big holiday. First 10 days of May is a big holiday for the Russians. the May holidays are on. And lots of Russians have fled Russia to Crimea to get to the beach. First beach day of the year. Traffic was backed up for kilometers. 2 lanes, bumper to bumper, waiting to cross the Crimean bridge. Because it's 1 lane only, right? Open one direction 3 hours at a time. The day after, the Ukrainians bombed the shit out of Crimea. Last night, we saw the ammo depot at Saki Airfield go up in a hail of bullets and anti-aircraft missiles. We saw S-400 systems hit. We saw S-300 systems hit. We saw the air bases at, Belcam, Beldov? Anyway, the other 2 air bases are near Saki were both hit. The air base out by Fedosia was hit. The port of Fedosia was hit. Jankoy was hit, the logistics hub up in the north. Just west of there, another location was hit. Every airfield in Crimea was hit last night, plus a bunch of air defense and logistic hubs. Huge. Now, details of what was hit are just beginning to emerge. But as those details emerge, be sure to watch for updated videos on those subjects. Are they leaving as fast? I don't know, man. I don't know. Tourism is definitely down. It's insane to me. After seeing video of people with their children on the beach and Ukrainian missiles coming down in the water right off the beach, that you would even think to take your children back there. It doesn't make sense. It is time to hit the bridge. And look, if the Chinese are saying, don't hit the May Day parade, please. We need a favor from you. Don't do it. If the Chinese are saying that, that puts Ukraine in a tough spot, boy. You go up against the Chinese. The Chinese are already helping Russia. How much more will they help if you piss them off? I don't know the answer to, and I don't know the answer to that, and that is not a choice I would want to have to make. So, who would want to touch Putin? I wouldn't want to touch. I have no interest in touching Putin. Ugh. Ugh, I threw up in my mouth a little bit there, just thinking about it. But the bridge is fair game, right? Bridge is fair game. Let's see whether or not the Ukrainians have the armaments that are required to hit the bridge. And in a meaningful way, right? It's got to be a meaningful way. No word on Moldova. There's nothing new. Well, it sort of is. So some analysts that I listen to are saying that there appears to be a Russian, God, I hate to just use the word plot, but plot. Oh, pardon me. There seems to be a Russian plot to undermine and destabilize the government in Odessa. Now, that could be an attempt to overthrow the legitimate government of the Oblast of Odessa and replace them with Kremlin puppets. Odessa is right up against Moldova, very near Transnistria, and it's Transnistria from which we expect the Russians to launch an invasion of Moldova. So is it possible that that plot to destabilize Odessa is part of a land grab, a long-term land grab strategy that includes Moldova? It could be. It could well be. Now, I did think this was super funny But there are 300 Ukraine. This part is not the funny part. Wait for the funny part. The not funny part is that there are 300 Ukrainians in Ukrainian jails for collaborating with the enemy, traitors, right? The Russians have at least as many Ukrainians in jail. The Ukrainians in the Ukrainian jail have said, hey, why don't you trade us for the Russian civilian prisoners? And the Ukrainians asked the Russians, and the Russians were like, no, we do not want them. We do not want them. They are traitors. Why would we want them? We don't want them. So they want them to sell out their country. But if they want to escape to Russia to be good Russians, Russia doesn't want them, which I think is the perfect example of how autocracies work. They are happy to throw everybody under the bus because they do not care. They are completely narcissistic and predatory in their nature. And it's just so great to see America becoming one of them. I just love it. Every day I feel better about my country than I did the day before. Okay, now we talked about the F-16s being sent as parts and the first aid package by Trump, $310 million for their maintenance. We talked about the North Koreans maybe going to the Donbass, the big attacks against Crimea last night. So the last news item that I have, it's Friday. It's time to take a look at the territory of control. The territory of control. The Russians added 7.8 square kilometers to their territory of control last week for the cost, the low cost of only 10,000 troops. What does that 7.8 kilometers account to? Less than 0.01% of Ukraine. They still hold about 18.66% of the country. It's insanity. Ukraine hasn't taken out the bridge, I think mostly because they can't. They don't have the weapons to do it. They don't have the right weapons to do it. So Chris Carter is here. Chris Carter is the sponsor of tonight's live, along with somebody who calls themselves Planning Services UK. Now, I don't know who that is. I tried to message them on PayPal, but their account doesn't allow messaging. So if you want to identify yourself, Planning Services of UK, please do. But big thanks to Chris Carter and Planning Services of UK. Not Ukraine, UK. Planning Services of Ukraine, Eli. Of UK, of United Kingdom. I am in Kyiv, yes. I've been in Kyiv for Hey, Julian Eccles, how you doing? I've been in Kyiv for 2 years, 2 months, and 2 days. Get out of here. Is that right? No, that's wrong. It's 2 years, 2 months, and 6 days. 6 days. 8 days. 2 years, 2 months, 1 week, 1 day. That's what it is. So I am live in Kyiv. Yes, so for me, it's already May 3rd. Thank you, sponsors. Also, thanks to Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and, of course, to the moderators, Jay and Travis, thank you. Did Ukraine gain any more land from that new counteroffensive? So the Ukrainians, they're not gaining land. They're retaking Russian positions. The only place that they're gaining land is in Belgorod. And the area of control in Belgorod has expanded, though not by much, couple square kilometers. Voting today in Australia. Everybody get out and vote. I love it when the Aussies are here. Yeah, Scotty, how do you get the C4 there? How do you get the C4 to the bridge? I mean, it's not like it's not defended. It's not like it's not patrolled. It's not like they don't have lots of cameras, lots of men, lots of machines at the bridge. That's not a thing, pal. Oh, please, 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 please. Okay, now. Thanks, Chris Pappas. I think I told you about Chris Pappas in Scranton, Pennsylvania, right? My buddy Chris Pappas in Scranton, Pennsylvania, his family has Pappas Pizza, which is not really pizza. I got to tell you, it's different, but it's good. Storm Shadow loves a nice bridge. I bet they do. In Georgia, things are very much status quo. The people are still protesting, which is insane. It's like 140 days now. They're still protesting. The government is still in the hands of the people who stole the election from the people. Georgia's plugging along. Oh, I want to go to Prague. I do want to go to Prague. Everything there is 800 years old, I hear. Or 600, something like that. Reuters just reported the U.S. has a big sanctions package ready to advance. Well, let's hope so. Yeah, no, I hear great things about Prague. What do you want to happen this week for Ukraine? Well, I always only want one thing. I want the Russian line to collapse, the Russian soldiers to point their guns at the people who are really responsible for their situation, and march on Moscow. And then I want to see the Russian Federation collapse in a power vacuum created by this dictator. That's what I always want. And I want it because I believe that it is inevitable. I absolutely, in my heart of hearts. Now, could I be wrong? Sure, I could be wrong. I'm wrong about a lot of things. Ask my ex-wife. But in my heart of hearts, I believe it with every fiber of my being that is the future. Yep, love the dictator speech by Charlie Chaplin. It's one of the greatest speeches of all time. You're worried about a Russian invasion of Czechia. I wouldn't be. You know, there's been a lot of talk for many, many months about a Russian invasion from Belarus. And now that talk is back again. The Russians have 62,000 soldiers in Kursk, right? Remember, the Ukrainians pushed into Kursk and took 1,000 square kilometers, a great big comma shape out of Russian territory. So the Russians had to move in 78,000 soldiers to ring them in and keep them in their space, and then finally to collapse the line. Well, by the time they finally did that, very much with the help of the North Koreans, your long 100-kilometer front line collapsed into a 13-kilometer front line. Of the 78,000 that were sent, there are still 63,000 there. So now you have 63,000 soldiers along a 13-kilometer front line. The first thing that's likely to happen is that 11,200 of them will be pulled out and sent to the Donbass. Those are the North Koreans. So that leaves you with 51,500 about. Now, of those, you've already sent tens of thousands, probably 20,000, over to Belgorod to contain the incursion in Belgorod. So everybody's looking at these 62,000 and they're saying, We're worried about an incursion from the north, a new front opening in Sumy, a new front opening in Belarus. But I don't see how. After you take the 20,000 out of Kursk to fight in Belgorod, you're left with 30,000. Normally, there's 18,000 troops in the oblast doing border defense to begin with. So you don't have that many more than you need for border defense. How are you going to launch an offensive like that? It doesn't make sense to me. So I do not foresee, even though there's a lot of talk about it, the Russians are going to have to rearm before they can begin their expansionist activities again. That's going to mean 3 to 5 years. That's going to mean 3 to 5 years at least, assuming that Russia survives this war, which I find it very hard to believe that they will. Do you see how the world let it happen if it was meant to be the ultimate red line, North Korea? Yeah, we're not doing enough. I agree. They are running out of soldiers, hence North Korea. Yes, I agree. I think that's pretty clear. Do I think that China is the enemy of the world? I don't know that I would say that China is the enemy of the world, but they are certainly a force to be concerned about. I would say that Russia is the very clear enemy of the world today. Oh, I finally had enough left to block him. I blocked Trump strong finally. Not only are they running out of willing people to sign up for the meat grinder, they can't afford to pay them. With the signing bonuses where they are today, the Kremlin is spending 2 billion rubles a day to sign up 28,000 men a month. And they're losing more men than that on the battlefield. A lot of people say that, Martin. It's not impossible, certainly. And you know the excuse that China will make, right? If Russia collapses, China is going to say, wait, not only do we have historical ties and lots of Chinese-speaking people in northern Manchuria, but we have billions of dollars invested in Lake Baikal. We should have everything all the way to Siberia, north of us, to protect our investments. Or they won't say we should have it. They'll say, in the interest of preserving our investments, we will enter the territory to help establish peace and calm and maintain order as these new governments emerge. As these new governments are crafted as puppet regimes of Beijing rather than the Kremlin. Yeah, and I think they're going to get the opportunity, Zoe, I do. Yeah, northern Manchuria, everything north of outer Mongolia, all the way up. Vladivostok was a Chinese city for hundreds of years before the Russians took it from the Chinese about 180 years ago, Fitz, I want to say. I'd have to look it up, but it's something like that. Hey, Bobby. How you doing, buddy? Daskinger Jr., thank you. I assume Dastinger is a member of the Patreon and so gets the news that you are waking up to every morning, the news we are waking up to every morning. Guys, I do 2 news segments daily. The morning news that's published only on the Patreon, and then this live stream in the evening to kind of wrap up the day and expand our understanding of the top stories that came out this morning. So if you're not a member of the Patreon, please join the Patreon. That's an interesting question, Michael. So Michael says, I wonder if China is feeding Russia just enough to keep fighting, hoping Russia continues to weaken. It could well be. It could well be. My concern on well, it's not a concern anymore. It was a concern under Biden. My big concern under Biden was, were we giving the Ukrainians just enough to keep them in the fight but not let them win? Just keep weakening Russia at the cost of Ukrainian blood. And I got to tell you, it sure looks like that was what Biden was doing. And now we've got Trump. No air raid right now, however, not here in Kyiv, but Kharkiv and Zaporizhia. Zaporizhia was pounded early this morning. Kharkiv is being pounded right now. At the last count, there were 39 civilians. Now, look, everything in Crimea last night was military targets, ammo dumps, airports, port infrastructure, etc., right? Military. Right now, you got bombs dropping in Kharkiv that have injured 39, including a 13-year-old boy. Last night, overnight, we saw 29 injured in Zaporizhia, with apartment buildings hit, a school hit. Come on. It's not the same. They're not fighting. These two groups are not fighting the same war. The Russians are running a terror campaign against Ukrainian civilians. 5 schools, it could be. I'm not sure. You know, these attacks happen every day here, Dark Bamboos. And I tend not to report them. Because people want to hear about the successes. They want to hear about the wins. Consistently, my reports on damage to civilian targets, the human interest stories, they don't get attention. And if we want to keep Ukraine in the news, then I have to focus on what people want to hear about. It is all a big game for the dictators. Yes, it is. Plus, it does, boy, I'll tell you, it does get hard if you look at those pictures every day of those kids, because kids are getting unalived every single day in this country. It's evil. It's pure evil. A Georgian-born man was arrested in Greece for spying on NATO. He said it was for the motherland. Meaning Georgia or Russia? Probably Russia. Yeah, Russia's pulling out all the stops. They got China asking Ukraine, don't bomb the parade. They got the ceasefire, so-called. What about Palpatine? What about him? That fucking guy. Yeah, it's a real fear, Scotty. Do I think that Ukraine should abide by a 3-day ceasefire for Putin's victory parade? No. Do I trust the Ukrainians to use the time in their best interest? Yes, I do. As far as that goes, I'm sure the Ukrainians would like to have 3 days off. So if they can do it, if the Russians really aren't shooting at them, well, why shoot back? I wouldn't blame them one bit for taking 3 days off. Clean your guns, clean up the place, get some sleep, you know? Iran is not scheduled to be at the parade, to the best of my knowledge. I saw a list of the countries that planned to be in attendance. Iran was not on the list. Night, Annette. Thank you. Trump Jr., this is hysterical to me. Trump Jr. is starting a private club in D.C. To get in is $500,000. So he's disguising the act of influence peddling to his father as a private club. This is exactly what the Republicans accused Hunter Biden of for all those years. It's ridiculous. It's the hypocrisy, the stench of the hypocrisy from this crime family is unbearable to me. I literally had to go 5,000 miles away to get away from it. I couldn't take it. Yeah, but you can do all the coke you want. Only at the upstairs bar is what I understand, Little Red. China helping the Houthis. Oh, I saw that. They provided some satellite intel, right? Yeah. No, the corruption and hypocrisy knows no bounds. None at all. Nada, nunca. So, guys, again, I do want to thank Chris Carter and Planning Services of UK. Again, I don't know who Planning Services of UK are. Send me a DM and identify yourself if you would. That would be great. I would like to know who you are. If you are not on the Patreon, please join the Patreon. You can get a free account. And you can get the news in your inbox every morning, just as the gentleman there was suggesting. If you can afford to kick me $5 or $10 a month, that would be great. It doesn't matter. No, money is drying up. I'm seeing it already. And that means that my future in Ukraine is uncertain. If I have to get a real job type job, there's no way I can do this at the level that I do it. This takes up a lot of my day. Wasn't the 2022 May 9 parade the joke with overturning tank antique? I don't know. Last year, the only tank in the parade was a World War between World War I and World War II era T-34 tank. That was the only tank in the parade last year. I don't think Trump said that, Nightshade. I think that was Lindsey Graham, wasn't it? It was Lindsey Graham who's got a bill in the Senate to put 500% tariffs on third-party countries that try to get around the price cap on Russian oil and gas. Now, of course, maybe Trump did say that, and that's where Lindsey got the idea for the bill. Desperate as he is, fawning sycophant, face covered in mango ass. Maybe he got the idea from Trump, yeah. The coalition of the willing has dissolved and dried up, and nobody is willing to send their sons to Ukraine to die. The UK are backing off the idea. The French are backing off the idea. It doesn't look like anybody's doing it. Ladybug Lindsay. All right, now let's not make fun of him for who he is. Let's just make fun of him for what he thinks. Hey, Bluey. All right, guys, it's just about 1 o'clock in the morning here in beautiful uptown Kyiv. I'm going to call it a night. So Thanks again to Chris Carter and Planning Services UK for sponsoring tonight's live. Chris will be our sponsor Monday as well, and then it'll be Arn all week. If anybody's interested in co-sponsoring, the PayPal is in the description. Thanks to everybody who makes all this possible. Especially Lars, who has the Discord server, Nightshade, who has the Peter's Peeps group on the Book of Faces, and the moderator team. Thank you, guys. I think that's a good prediction that Ukraine will hijack some of the TV stations on May 9th, at the very least. Ukraine will make itself known. May 9th is not going to go by without some appearance by the Ukrainians. The question is, how bold will they be? How much of a risk in terms of international peace and international involvement will they take? In fact, let's say they hit the parade. Let's say Xi Jinping was unalived. Would China suddenly come into the war on the side of Russia? Or would they back off of their support for Russia? I don't know the answer to that. And it's a big roll of the dice, boy. It's a big roll of the dice. So I'm glad that I don't have to make those decisions. But it will be interesting to see what happens next Friday at the May Day parade, or at the May 9th Victory Day parade. Budanov did say bring earplugs, Nicola, but he is a fucker. He fucks with you, you know? So, I mean, his whole gig is disinformation. So I would take that with a grain of salt and a little bit of cheek. All right, everybody, make it a great day.